started on our very first topic of your 6th grade year. And that we already said was decimals. You know that since you did the scavenger hunt through the syllabus, that the first thing we're talking about is decimals. But before we do any kind of calculations or with the decimals themselves, you gotta have a comfort level as a 6th grader with place value and what those decimals really represent. So we're going to talk about this chart that I'm standing on today and make sure that we are refreshing our minds of the different place value, what each place represents, and what a number that's inside of our chart really means. So first of all, can you name the value of each place as we move to the left and to the right away from the decimal point? So if I were to give you a blank chart and I didn't have these words labeled, would you be able to fill them in? And if the answer is no, then I need you to take it upon yourself, learn like a jungle tiger, and give this chart a review. Maybe get a blank one, make a blank one for yourself, practice, do some flashcards, whatever you need to do to get comfortable with the different place values. All the way from the millions, that's a lot, all the way down to the millionths, which are itty bitty bitty. Remember first that that decimal point right there is kind of a dividing line. It's the divider between the whole numbers that are on this side and the pieces of a whole that are represented on the right. As soon as we cross over the decimal point, we are now in a territory representing pieces of whole, not a whole amount or a whole one. We're talking pieces. So please make sure you're good with whole number values on the left-hand side versus the pieces on the right. As we go to the right, I want you to remember that we increase or multiply by 10 each time. The same happens as we do the opposite. As we move to the left, we decrease by 10 or divide by 10. We get smaller by 10s. So you might be wondering why I'm holding this bag of gummy bears. Well, first of all, it's because I absolutely love gummy bears. I may not have shared that with you guys yet in all of the different little bits of information so far, but this is one of my very favorite things. Pretty much anything gummy, but gummy bears, love them. It's dangerous if you give me a whole bag. But more importantly, we're going to talk through an example using gummy bears just to make it a little more concrete of what a decimal number really represents. So look at that number that I do have represented on my chart. That number is read 3,684 and 26 hundredths. So notice that I did not say 3,684. The and word in our decimal numbers only belongs to the decimal point. We say and to represent our decimal point, and that is it. So 3,684 and 26 hundredths. That's the amount that we have. So I want you to picture how many gummy bears does that really represent. So let's talk one digit at a time. I've got that 3 down there. What does that 3 represent as in terms of gummy bears? How many gummy bears would Mrs. Klupel be able to feast on if this were the amount that she had? So that 3 represents 3,000 gummy bears. This bag, I don't know how many it has. It probably has about 60 to 80 gummy bears. Can you imagine how much 3,000 gummy bears looks like? Oh my gosh, that's my dream. However, that means 3,000 whole gummy bears. Then we move along to the hundreds place. What does the 6 represent? Well, the 6 represents 600 gummy bears. So we have 3,000 of them, we have 600 more. We move to the tens place. That 8 in the tens place represents 80 gummy bears. And then the 4. The 4 represents 4 ones, or 4 whole gummy bears. So far, we're talking whole gummy bears, 3,684 of them. Now, what happens when we cross over that decimal point and we're looking at that 2? Does that mean if I reach in here that I have 2 gummy bears? It does not. What did we say we're going to do to go from the ones place over to the tenths place? We're going to divide by 10. So that means I have to pretend that I have little Barbie scissors, and I'm going to chop up my poor little green gummy bear into how many pieces? Into 10 pieces. And each one would be 1/10 of a gummy bear. Because remember, we're on the decimal side now, so we're talking not whole gummy bears, we're talking parts. So if we have 2/10, according to our chart, 2/10, that means I took my little Barbie scissors, I cut my one gummy bear into 10 pieces, and how many of those pieces count? Hopefully you're thinking 2 of them. 2 out of the 10 itty bitty little pieces count towards my pile represented by my number here. So remember, we have 3,684 whole gummy bears. Now we have in our pile this guy cut up into 10 pieces, and we're only including 2 of those tenths, or 2 of those 10 pieces. Okay? So picture one last spot on our number. We are on the 6, which is in the hundredths place. So I'm going to put this guy back. I'm going to get out a different color just so we can envision. We are not talking whole gummy bears anymore. Remember, we're now in the parts, and these parts are not tenths anymore. That 6 on our chart represents hundredths. How in the world could I put my 600ths of a gummy bear into my pile? What would I have to do? Hopefully you're thinking something crazy, because I don't know how we would do it, but if we had to, we would chop this guy up into 100 pieces. Hundredths means our whole is cut up into 100 pieces. How many of those 100 pieces, which honestly, we would have to practically use a microscope to see them, because this guy cut up into 100 pieces would be itty bitty little pieces. How many of those teeny tiny pieces would we include in our pile? And hopefully you're thinking 6 of them. So 2600ths means this guy cut up into 10 pieces and we're taking 2. And this guy cut up into 100 pieces and we're taking 6. So hopefully that is just a little bit of a refresher on place value and what our decimal numbers really mean if we're thinking of something a little concrete like a gummy bear. Oh my gosh, I just want to dump them on. I think I'm getting a little sick. I think I ate too many gummy bears.